I want to start by running you through India and its neighborhood, specifically the neighborhood. Now, let's start with Pakistan. The India-Pakistan relationship is at its lowest point in decades because of Islamabad's continued support for cross-border terrorism. Go down south to the Maldives. A pro-China president, Mohammad Muizzu, says he wants India out of his country. This presents a serious challenge to India's strategic interests in the Indian Ocean region. Moving on to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is recovering from a severe economic crisis, and India has provided economic assistance to the island nation, but there's China in the neighborhood, calling in old debts. Up north to Nepal, a new prime minister has come back. He's the leader who wants to take territory back from India, and in whose previous tenure, the Nepal government published a map showing territories it claims, Indian territories. And finally, there's Bangladesh. Nearly 15 years of political and economic investments in Sheikh Hasina's government seem to have come to a naught. Sheikh Hasina's government has collapsed, she's fled the country, and there's a question mark on India's influence in Bangladesh today. How does India tackle the changing geopolitical landscape in its neighborhood? What should India do in a volatile South Asia? Joining me to discuss this today are Ambassador Anil Trigunyat and Vinay Kumar, author and senior journalist. And in the studio here is my colleague Kartikeya Sharma. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus show. Ambassador Trigunyat, I want to start by asking you this. The Lok Sabha is seized of a very important matter. The fact that Samajwadi Party MP Jaya Bachchan was called by her full name, Jaya Amitabh Bachchan. Of course, just to illustrate how serious the kind of matters that are being discussed in India right now in Parliament. In the neighborhood, literally every country is on fire. They're literally fighting for their existence, whether it is Pakistan, whether it's Sri Lanka, and more recently, Bangladesh. Just to illustrate, India is an oasis of calm. There's an arc of instability all around us. There's a 360-degree arc of instability. What does this mean for all our investments in all of these countries that we've made over the last couple of years? Is it right to say that looking at the way things have played out in Bangladesh in the last couple of days, 2024 is the lowest point in India's influence in South Asia?
You know, one thing is, I will not comment on our Lok Sabha or our members of the parliament, what are they discussing. But we are all of the same stock in the region.
Yes.
And I would like to say that I often see this as, the neighbors are the gift of geography, but they can be the pains of history. So it is also quite possible to have differences, especially when you have another big neighbor in China, which just wants to continue within the South Asian region as only. So that is the bigger picture. As far as our neighbors are concerned, you know that we follow this policy, which is a non-reciprocal policy called neighborhood first. We provide them all kinds of assistance, lines of credit with billions of dollars, all, and P2P connect remains pretty strong. Investments, trade, because India believes essentially that a stronger neighborhood is good for us, for our own safety and security. You know, in Bangladesh, in the last 15 years, Sheikh Hasina, whichever way she governed, and that she has paid for it. But at the same time, in the international discourse, and as far as India was concerned, one of the most important things that we found was she was able to contain the extremism and terrorism from across the border. And that was a very major achievement in our country. Besides, the Bangladesh also became very important in our sub-regional initiatives, as the SARC was not at all working. Therefore, we have this BBIN, we have BIMSTEC, we have several other initiatives which are blending our Act East policy with the neighborhood first policy. So the relationship is quite good. But at the same time, you are absolutely right. Our neighborhood is in a turmoil. In Afghanistan 2020, we saw that Taliban is very much there. And then in 2022, we saw in Sri Lanka, then in Bangladesh, then in
Yes.
Maldives, Bangladesh, so Nepal. So all these, there have been changes which
Yes.
appear to be inimical to India's interests.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've said it
But,
right.
but
You've said it correctly. Ambassador Trigunyat, you have put it very diplomatically. The neighborhood is in turmoil. Our interests have suffered
You
in
know,
the recent thing. I'm going to ask you this, Kartikeya. Important point that Ambassador Trigunyat mentioned, and there must be celebrations in Beijing right now. The fact that India is firewalled in South Asia. Here we are sitting here, not talking about the world, we're only talking about our region, our geography. It's tempting to say that should India have a Monroe doctrine of its own, right?
You-
With like the United States.
maybe SARC was conceived like a Monroe doctrine, but the larger issue is
SARC is dead.
SARC is dead, one. And secondly, I think the larger issue is if we see this in context of Delhi, in relationship with Islamabad or
Yes.
Kathmandu or Dhaka or Maldives, I think the larger picture is one that Pakistan, India, Nepal, Bangladesh,
Yes.
Myanmar, Sri Lanka, we are a product of colonial history.
Absolutely.
What constitutes a nation and what are the core values of a nation? I think it has remained contested.
Right.
Even in India, it remains contested. That is why the most heated discussions are on when directive principles can become fundamental rights.
Yes.
You know, even in Pakistan,
Right.
the foundation of Pakistan, it's contested. Bangladesh, should it have an Islamic character? Should
Right.
it be secular? Yesterday in the
Yes.
program when we were sitting together,
yeah.
what did the gentleman tell us? He said, after the recitation of Quran, you will have the reading of Bible,
Right.
then you'll have a reading of Gita. And in this context, there was recitation of Quran.
Yes.
The Bible and Gita went missing.
We didn't see that.
We
Yes.
didn't see that.
Yeah.
We didn't see that.
Right.
And then the swearing in took place.
Right.
My point is that what constitutes a stable nation
Yes.
is still being contested, unlike Anglo-Saxon democracies,
Right.
where their share of violence has taken place.
Absolutely.
For example, Myanmar.
Yeah. Myanmar is the other country that we
Myanmar,
mentioned.
Bangladesh,
but
Nepal,
yes,
it's
yes.
monarchy. There are political parties. When
Right.
I went for the News9 Plus assignment,
Yes.
there are people, including Manisha Koirala, whose family I met.
Yes.
They said that the king should come back.
Absolutely. But you know, while these are all independent countries that we mentioned, Kartika, but the point is that we have in India a neighborhood first policy. The Prime Minister
if you ask me,
began his
if you-
government by
if you
inviting
ask
all
me
the
biggest-
heads of government.
If you ask me, the biggest problem is that except India,
Yes.
democracy
Yes.
and this, I wouldn't use the word secular, the plural values
Yes.
are not well rooted in Pakistan or even in Bangladesh or even in Sri Lanka, you know, those
Right.
plural values, Myanmar,
Myanmar.
those plural values are not ingrained.
But
I'm very proud to say in India,
Yes.
despite our problems, the plural values, I'm not using the word secular, the plural, Saradha Sambhav,
Right.
is far more ingrained, the democratic values. That is why even when violence takes place, you have a section of the society
Yes.
which restores democracy, talks about restoring democratic institutions, and not talk about violent transitions.
Right. But let's ask Vinay Kumar on what happens to our neighborhood first policy, Vinay. The fact that, you know, we've invested so heavily in the neighborhood, the Prime Minister staked his political capital. As we were discussing, he began his first term in office in 2014 with all the SARC heads of government, almost unprecedented. I haven't seen that ever. But now you're looking at possibly one of the lowest points in India's influence in the region. We've seemed to have lost a few friends recently. We've got some very anti-India heads of government there. Of course, Foreign Minister Jaishankar is in Maldives even as we speak. We don't know what the outcome of that visit is going to be. But, you know, it's fair to assume that it's a very, we've suffered a series of setbacks. What's the way forward?
Yeah, Sandeep, this situation in Bangladesh also presents a new challenge to our foreign policy and
Yes.
how we should reorient ourselves because, as you said, being part of neighborhood first policy which we undertook, we have invested very heavily.
Right.
But the experience in Bangladesh shows that the economic development and growth is all right, but
Right.
democratic values and respect for institutions, democratic institutions, and as Kartikeya was saying, the pluralism, the plural values,
Yes.
that also weigh very heavily. And
Right.
as the world's largest democracy, we in India we strongly believe in these values.
Yes.
And as far as all these nations which you have named, there is ethnic insurgency and the military rule in Myanmar and Pakistan. We all know on our western borders how the situation is. The cross-border terrorism is not stopping at all,
Right.
and we have seen the spurt in violence in particular in Jammu and Kashmir. Then Bangladesh is the latest one, and Sri Lanka and Maldives you have already mentioned. A sudden anti-India, sentiment and feelings in a small country like Maldives, which thrives upon tourism from India. That is the biggest revenue earner for them. But
Right.
in Bangladesh, it shows, that if you see our in 2022, India-Bangladesh bilateral trade had gone up to nearly 40 to 15 billion dollars
Yes.
annually. So, we have invested in power, we have invested in steel infrastructure there,
Right.
infrastructure, big projects, and Sheikh Hasina very cleverly played both cards very well.
Right.
China and India delicately balancing. And we also know that, our airport construction company, they lost a bid in, I think it was in Sylhet a couple of years ago to a Chinese
Yes.
company. And Padma River Bridge, which was a very ambitious project of Sheikh
Which
Hasina.
Sheikh Hasina wanted to hand over to India. So I'm going to ask Ambassador
Yeah.
Trigunyat this. Ambassador Trigunyat, the fact that we were saying that this represents a very significant setback to our interests in Bangladesh. And I was speaking to one of their freedom fighters yesterday, and he said, it's your fault as well because you didn't tell Sheikh Hasina that, look, listen, go easy on the opposition, go easy on the protests. Maybe you should have advised her better because we lost our connect with Sheikh Hasina. She chose to surround herself with a few advisors. She insulated herself from public opinion. But, what's the way forward really, where you have a neighborhood in turmoil, you have a country, the world's largest, second largest economy, literally bearing on our northern borders, and it's created deep inroads in our neighborhood, whether it's Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives. What's the way forward really? There's no way we can come out with a Monroe Doctrine, much as a section of our political establishments wants it to be. But what's the way ahead for a democracy like India, where established democracy like us, where we have to respect a 5-year mandate for governments? We don't have a vision that extends beyond 5 or 10 years. What is really something that we should be doing in the next couple of months?
Well, I think that one thing is sure by this that we can be wiser in hindsight. It's always easier.
Yes.
But at the same time, I would like to say that there is something fundamentally good that we have done,
Right.
irrespective. Now look at Afghanistan. Taliban is there. They were not our friends. But
Right.
today Taliban has been requesting us repeatedly to come and help them continue with the projects whichever have been stalled. Every now and then we keep getting requests from them and we started doing that. Look at Myanmar, we are continuing to collaborate with them. And this is being, look at Sri Lanka. India is the country that bailed them out. Nepal, once again, they look up to India. There could be a leader who is more, moving towards China one way or the other, but then they come back. Likewise, I have a feeling that Bangladeshi people who are far more connected to us
Yes.
culturally, especially with Bengal. I mean, Bengali culture is more important than simply their religion, frankly.
Right.
If you come to, I have served there and I have seen it. There are lumpen elements in every society who try to create these radicalized kind of
Yes.
narratives, and there are Hindu-Muslim rights and things like that. But at the same time, I would say that broadly, the Bangladeshi people think very differently about India.
Absolutely.
They felt in the last 15 years that India had put all its eggs in her basket. That
Right.
is the problem. They try to identify India today at the grassroots level. And I would say the BNP, the Jamaat-e-Islami, and all these parties which are against India, which are pro-Pakistan, which are also being supported by the United States today in the region. So there, I would believe that they continue to work against all these anti-India. Now, this is a reality. I would say that our policy is very good because it has benefited the people overall.
Right.
Bangladesh has come out of poverty. It is coming out of the developing countries, that is from underdeveloped countries. It is much better performing economy than than Pakistan, from where it dissociated. So I think that
Absolutely.
we'll have to continue to work on that, and people do understand that. And I have no doubt that if we have to have a little bit of a hands-off policy as far as the government is concerned, they will realize very soon
Yes.
that no other country can help them the way India can. And we
Absolutely.
have
Yes.
already seen statements coming from BNP and from even Yunus that we can work together.
Yeah, we'll work
and it is
together. We're very unhappy that you backed Sheikh Hasina, but we'd love to work with you in the future. That's what
Sandeep, isn't this a dichotomy that
Yes.
you've been to Nepal and most of these countries,
Yes.
that despite India's best help and despite culturally connected, I mean, so there is a saying कि आप
Yes.
हिंदू संस्कार हिंदुस्तान में आके बिना पूरे नहीं कर सकते if you're in Nepal,
Right.
because all the cultural all the important centers are there. I mean, so the sort of space which is accorded to the erstwhile monarch of Nepal,
Yes.
even the Indians didn't have that cultural space to get inside the sanctorum sanctorum
Yes.
of number of temples in North India. But then this complex, despite India's best help to Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, now Maldives,
Yeah.
is that you are a big brother. It just baffles me sometimes
absolutely, it does.
that despite all the help,
Yes.
the parting line would be you have to be slightly more humble. This I can't just get over it. After traveling to all these countries, I really I don't know where does it come from. As I said, when I went for that assignment,
Yes,
to
Nepal.
Nepal, the same thing. Sri Lanka, the same thing.
I think they're overawed by India. I mean, India is called the elephant in the room. I mean, it's unmissable, like we were discussing yesterday. But the fact is that many of these smaller countries literally take us for that, the elephant, and they're intimidated by the size of India, I guess. And, they call us big brother and meddling in their affairs and all of that, which we've done possibly to some extent, but not to the extent that other countries have done. Because fundamentally there is a civilizational connect, as Ambassador Trigunyat was
even
mentioning,
Afghanistan,
between
I
India
had been
and-
to that place
Yes.
twice, and I had the opportunity to travel from Kabul to Mazar-e-Sharif by
Yes.
road, Jalalabad and all these areas. All our work, which we had done for Afghanistan, that's the first thing which the Taliban attacked. Dera
Yes.
Saranj Road,
Right.
which would have connected Chabahar, cutting across the middle of Afghanistan,
Yes.
connecting Kandahar, and from Kandahar straight away to Kabul.
Yes.
That was the first thing they did.
Yeah, but
attack and break
the
it.
second avatar of the Taliban seems to want India to come back, as the ambassador just mentioned, the fact that they're looking for India to rebuild their infrastructure and indeed train their cricket team as well. But that's a discussion for another day. I'd leave you with this. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. Ambassador Trigunyat, Vinay Kumar, my colleague, Kartikeya Sharma. India and the arc of instability in South Asia. Recent reverses, but we look at the glass as half full rather than half empty. Who is in charge in the national capital, New Delhi? Just a few days ago, the flooding of a coaching institute basement claimed 3 young lives. The chief minister is in jail. The city's lieutenant governor is blaming the city government and the MCD for not preventing the tragedy. Now, the MCD is dysfunctional. So, Delhi is a state with multiple governments. Everybody is in charge, yet nobody is really in charge. The capital needs a cleanup, but who will do it? With Manish Sisodia, the former deputy chief minister, getting bail, will Delhi finally see a government swinging into action? And how will this release of the former deputy CM impact the Delhi state elections coming up early next year? Joining me to discuss this are Nikhil Jain, political analyst, and my colleague Brijesh Pandey in the studio here with me. Brijesh, first takes on what the court had to say on Manish Sisodia's release. Does that open the doors for a revival of the Aam Aadmi Party?
Well, I think it is definitely a shot in arm as far as Aam Aadmi Party is concerned, Sandeep, because Arvind Kejriwal had gotten bail for a limited period, Sanjay
Yes.
Singh got bail. But whenever you say that, the case is fictitious, or somebody says that, Aam Aadmi Party has not done this crime and all, they
Right.
will always cite the example of Satyen Jain and Manish Sisodia, saying that if they are innocent, why has, they have gone up to apex court and why has
Right,
the court
right.
denied them bail? So this argument was bandied, but I think the timing of his release couldn't have been much better
Yes.
for Aam Aadmi Party. His elections are like 7-8 months from
Right,
now on, and
right.
I think Arvind Kejriwal's case is also there. This
Right.
bail application is there. So I think in another month or so we can also expect Kejriwal to be out of jail as well, and it'll be very interesting to see how this changes the dynamic of elections
The
in Delhi.
political dynamic, the three-way contest in Delhi between the Congress, the Aam Aadmi Party and the BJP. But Nikhil, the larger question remains of who's really in charge of Delhi, and this dysfunctional system that we saw. You have a lieutenant governor, you have a state administration, and of course you have the center. All three of them blaming each other for the tragedy that just happened last month. What does this literally say about the state of things in India's national capital?
So, Sandeep, the administration in Delhi has always been very layered, very complicated. So, I'll tell you why that problem is. For the entire city, for the entire state, first of all, whether it's a city or a state, you're going to have people arguing about that, and somebody would call it a union territory. Now, within this, there is a municipal corporation that is supposed to do a lot of things. There is a Delhi Jal Board which reports to the Delhi government. And there is also the intervention of the central government because they are the ones who manage the land authority,
Right.
which is the DDA, and also the police and several other things. Now, what has further complicated the situation in Delhi is the GNCTD Amendment Act that was brought in recently by the Modi government. What that has done is that it has essentially taken away the power to transfer and appoint and remove
Yes.
and reprimand officers from the Delhi government. That creates a practical problem. Now, somebody might say that central government is only appointing the officers in Delhi, but the control is still under the Delhi minister, still under
Yes.
the Delhi government. But we all know that practically that's not how it functions. Officers are not going to listen to you if you can't do anything to them. They are not going to listen to you if they have been appointed by your rival political party,
Right,
which in this case
right.
is the BJP for the Aam Aadmi Party. So, time and again, the Aam Aadmi Party has been raising this issue in Delhi after the amendment came into being that their officers are not listening to them. And I think
Absolutely,
a classic example to support what the Aam Aadmi Party is saying is the fact that after the tragic incident happened in Rajendra Nagar, the lieutenant governor constituted a committee to look into why such an incident happened and what can be fixed and how to regulate the coaching institutions in Delhi, which is a very applaudable step.
Right.
Problem is that meeting is chaired by the lieutenant governor, attended by the relevant officers and bureaucrats,
Yes.
but not a single MLA or minister of the Delhi government is called. Now that is squarely within the exercise of the Delhi government. So what use does we have? What use does the Delhi government really have?
Right.
So essentially that is what is happening. And I can tell you of a personal incident, not a personal incident, but one of my friends who is a prosecutor for the Delhi government in the High Court. So basically, how there also what is happening is that when parole applications are moved, where a clearance is required from the Home Department. Now that clearance, the officers are simply writing that this file could not be processed because the chief minister is in custody. Please tell the court about this. Now this is no way of functioning. The chief minister is not going
Yes.
to decide on individual parole applications, right? But that is how obstructive officers in Delhi are acting. That is how gradually
Right.
political it has become. So unfortunately, despite the release, even after the release of Manish Sisodia, the former deputy CM, and even assuming that the Aam Aadmi Party again nominates him as the deputy CM, I feel the state of administration in Delhi is going to continue like this unless
Right.
the Supreme Court or the High Court steps in and strikes down the GNCTD amendment, or BJP magically or miraculously decides to stop interfering in the manner that they've been interfering in.
Right. Sanjay Rana joins us. Thank you, Nikhil. Sanjay Rana just joins us. I'm going to ask him this. Sanjay, this release of Manish Sisodia, the former Deputy Chief Minister, is that going to change things on the ground? It will, certainly for the Aam Aadmi Party, as Brijesh just told us. It's a shot in the arm for them. But the larger question of who is really in charge in New Delhi, where you have literally three governments running the show, all at each other's throats, pointing fingers at each other. Does that really change anything as far as this state of chaos is concerned?
I don't think so. It's going to change anything. Doesn't matter. Obviously, party level it makes sense for sure because it will boost their morale and they will get motivated for sure, no doubt on that. But if you look at administrative level, I don't think so it's going to make any difference whether he's there or is not there. Because I was hearing very carefully to our fellow panelist, and he rightly said because there is a very thin line between what Delhi government can do and what central government can do. The very thin line is very, very difficult to understand. Therefore, it's required for both the governments. I say, as Delhi government and central government has to work together, understand each other. Till the time these things are not there, and I don't think anything is going to change on the ground for the people of Delhi for sure. Politically, you can say anything. Politically, they will obviously, they are motivated, as I mentioned, and they will make political comments. But political is different thing, but how you're running the government is totally different. So if you have seen in last 1 year, I would say 1.5, the chaos is there in the Delhi. Things are not moving as per the requirement. People are not getting for which they have voted. So I think both the government has to think, or if not, then central government has to take a call whether they want to continue like this, or they want to dissolve Delhi government as it's happened in Nehru's era. So it's again depend upon political leaders and the central government how they have to take a call. But this the way both the parties and both the cadres are fighting with each other. I don't think this is going to make any changes on the ground for the people of India. Politically, party level, obviously, blame game will be there, but it will not benefit to any of the residents of Delhi.
It's a terrible prognosis that you've just given us, Sanjay. The fact that it's going to continue for 6 months, and you said people of India. I'm also worried about the people of Delhi. I mean, this is most of the people don't seem to have got the government that they voted for. And 6 months, Brijesh, I'm looking at the weather.
Weather is there. I think
monsoon, winter.
The tragedy is that that the case is before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has till now not find time to look into a case which practically looks or which practically will deal with the way Delhi is run.
Yes.
We can say that Saurabh Bharadwaj is not a good minister, XYZ is not a good minister. The fact of the matter is that no IAS officer, no IPS officer reports to you, and it is all being done by the LG. Now LG is the de facto chief minister, whether you like it or you don't like it. So we can have our favorite pot shots at the politicians, which is done. But the fact of the matter is that where is the accountability of the bureaucrat? And as Nikhil bhai wisely pointed out, until and unless you have the power of transfer or demoting, there is no fear, there is no sword which is hanging over the bureaucrat to listen to you. I mean, we have seen meetings. Saurabh Bharadwaj posted a clip and several other clips.
He said,
our
no one's listening to
confronted the chief secretary and said, like, why are you doing this? And there was no reply for it. They said, like, we'll look into it. So everybody knows that you can blame Aam Aadmi Party as much as you want to. But the fact of the matter is that it is the IAS or the bureaucrats who are running the show, and they are reporting only to the LG.
To the LG.
I mean, the funniest incident was had it been in any other civilized country, I would say, any other first world country which we so aspire to be, heads would have rolled.
Absolutely.
in the tragedy in which a person who was arrested, who was just merely driving past the coaching institute.
In the SUV.
It is one of the most tragic and unfathomable thing that he was arrested, and a court also gave him 12-day police custody.
Yes.
So I mean,
that's a metaphor, isn't it, Brijesh, for the way things are in Delhi at the moment. That what was that famous Hindi analogy for this? Andher Nagri, Chaupat Raja. There's a story for that.
But here you have to figure out who exactly the Raja is.
Yes. So we really don't know that, and we'll leave you with that thought about the state of things in Delhi, as our panelists have just told us that there's a battle for Delhi. There are fingers being pointed at each other, but the former Deputy Chief Minister's release, Mr. Manish Sisodia's release, is not going to change things. Things are going to stay the same way as they have in the past few years. It's going to intensify possibly over the next few months as Delhi heads into elections. You can watch our long-form story, Battle for the Capital, by my colleague Nivrithi Mohan, only on the News9 Plus app. Download and watch.
पार्टियों ने मिलकर गठबंधन बनाया, उसका नाम रखा इंडिया। 140 करोड़ लोगों का इंडिया है। इंडिया हमारे दिल में बसता है, भारत हमारे दिल में बसता है, हिंदुस्तान हमारे दिल में बसता है। अरे किस किस के दिल से निकालोगे तुम इंडिया?
भारत माता की, भारत माता की।
BJP fell short of a majority in 2024 and Prime Minister Modi now leads a coalition government. The opposition has a new energy, the Congress is resurgent. That is why the 4 assembly elections in Maharashtra, Jharkhand, Haryana and Delhi become crucial. The results will decide how the BJP-led NDA rules for the next 4 years. As a combative Rahul takes on the BJP, we look at who will win the next 4 electoral battle.
You have a state where a sitting chief minister who's not resigned from his post and cannot be forced by the courts to resign, he is sitting inside the jail.
तो जो पार्टी जेल बेल और कोर्ट के चक्कर में घूम रही है, मुझे नहीं लगता कि दिल्ली की जनता उसे स्वीकार करेगी.
Most of them have gone to jail on the charges of corruption. Led us to that decision of not going along with them in the Vidhan Sabha elections.
My own sense is that in assembly election, Aam Aadmi Party is still the front runner.
Let me read out the names of what's dropping on OTT this Friday. Fir Aaye Haseen Dilruba, The Instigators on Apple TV, Gurchadi on Jio Cinema, Life Hil Gayi on Disney Hotstar, Gyara Gyara on Z5. Now, these are extremely popular shows, eagerly anticipated movies. Streaming platforms are offering a wave of captivating content this Friday. I don't know which movies are releasing at the box office, but I surely know the list of all these releases on OTT platforms. You know, for a viewer, these may be one per platform, but for other viewers, it talks about the choice before them. How many choices are the Hindi film industry offering its viewers? Joining me to discuss this is my colleague, Krishna Kumar. Krishna, Hindi films lost their mojo completely. We're only talking about OTT. What do you make of this OTT deluge?
A Friday these days, there are 2 kinds of Fridays. There's one on the big screen and there's one on the small screen. And these days, clearly, the number of releases across OTT platforms are definitely outnumbering any one particular language. You talk about, say, for example, you take a language like Tamil.
Yes.
The number of movies releasing in the movie theaters on a particular Friday is always invariably lower than the number of releases that are happening on OTT platforms. And now you put out a mix of everything. There is a Hindi movie like Fir Aaye Haseen Dilruba releasing on Netflix, which comes with certain decent reviews and the kind of pulpy thriller noir which is enjoyed on Netflix. And then you have a Hollywood release like The Instigators, which has a star cast that includes Matt Damon and Casey Affleck and the likes of them. Not the highest rated Hollywood film, but nonetheless a
it's a made-for-OTT movie.
Exactly. So you have a big Hollywood release on that front, and you have smaller films like Ghurchadi or Life Hil Gayi. All these kind of things means that the OTT is able to offer everything from a big Hollywood release to a highly critically acclaimed Hindi movie release to smaller films as well. That is the beauty of the platform per se. OTT as a platform, I would say.
So OTT is, what you're saying is the OTT has become the multiplex today.
Oh, absolutely. That's definitely one way of looking at it. That's definitely one way of looking at it, because you go to a multiplex, you could have been offered all these 6, 7
exactly, and
across 6, 7 screens.
And today you're seeing this on your remote control.
Yes, true. That is the reality that we're living in over here. But I'd have to say, just like the movie releases in box offices, where certain weekends are just absolute blockbuster weekends, big movies release. You had the whole Barbenheimer happen once, and then you have the same thing happening in Indian cinema as well. Simultaneous releases, big movies, good movies, and all that. So OTT too also has the same issues. And not every single time, you have these OTT releases that go absolutely viral. It's not every Friday it does. But what you've listed out sort of gives you an idea. you and I, or for the matter people watching this, might not be logging on to a Friday release every Friday on an OTT. But whether you are watching or not, there's tons of content that is dropping on OTT platforms come Friday. That is the consistency with which new content and new choices are being offered to the viewers, and that is the reason why you're witnessing this problem that Hindi cinema faces in the movie halls.
Right.
So many viewers are like, I have too many options to watch on OTT. If I really have to make the effort to go to the movie theater, there should be something that really, really excites me, something that really connects with me for me to make that effort to go to the movie theater. So that puts a huge onus on filmmakers in terms of the choice of films that they make, the scale at which they make these movies, the scale at which they promote these movies. It all has to be high decibel these days to literally drag audiences to the movie theaters, because they're spoilt for choice on OTT platforms.
They're
Sandeep.
spoiled for choice on OTT platforms, and in fact, the only industries that seem to have cracked this formula that you mentioned, Krishna, is the South Indian movies. I mean, look at the latest Dhanush release. Ryan. My God, it looks like a Hollywood film. I mean, that's the kind of movie that people would pay to watch in a theater, a big screen.
Yeah, and it has music by A.R. Rahman, for God's sake. So, Ryan, incidentally, was a success in the Tamil box office. It is one of Dhanush's highest earning movies in the box office. Now, the OTT release of Ryan is highly awaited. We understand at this stage that it's going to be Sun Next as a platform. It's going to be releasing it. And apart from that, it might be available on Amazon Prime Video as well. We don't know for sure across all languages. So, Ryan, because of what it did in the movie theaters, also arrives on OTT as a high-profile release. Not necessarily every single movie that arrives on OTT is a high-profile release. For example, when KGF 2 came to the OTT platform, it was like, oh my God, this is one of the biggest blockbusters of all time coming to the OTT release. So in a sense, OTT also absorbs and reflects what does well in the movie theaters as well.
Absolutely. And in fact, I remember that movie that you persuaded me to watch, and I'm very happy I watched that movie. Malayalam film, Manjumel Boys. My God, what an astonishing film. And you have Mammootty's release this Friday as well.
You have Turbo. But Turbo not necessarily, again, the quality of Malayalam movies, Sandeep, is so high. You had Manjumal Boys and a film like Avesham starring Fahad Fazil releasing, in quick succession. And, it just set the OTT box office on fire. But so Turbo in that sense is not the greatest piece of cinema that the Malayalam film industry has churned out in recent times. But nonetheless, you have a star like Mammootty in it. So, if you're a Mammootty fan, then definitely that will be something that you'll be watching. All Malayalis and Mammootty fans in India and abroad, everywhere, who will be watching that. So that's what I'm trying to say. You shouldn't necessarily over glorify OTT platforms. Not every Friday is the same. Not every Friday you have absolutely great content that is releasing. So OTT also has its mixed bag of content that comes out every Friday. Not everything is going to be extremely fascinating. What the viewer needs to know at this stage is that you really have to make an informed choice in terms of what you're in the mood for, what is really highly rated, what can, really keep you engaged, and then make a choice, because there's tons out there.
There's tons out there.
So for example, if you're not a Mammootty fan, or if you're not interested in watching, a film like Turbo, then don't. Watch something else.
Stream it or skip it. That's the show that you used to do.
Well, I would say stream it all the time. Never skip anything. Choose in priority what you want to stream first, and then the next.
Choose in priority what you want to stream first. You heard it from the man himself, Krishna Kumar, our in-house movie buff, who does the show called Stream It or Skip It. Stream It, he says, this Friday, dropping all over OTT. OTT is the new multiplex. It brings all this entertainment, a surfeit of entertainment into the houses of people, and the film industries, some of them can barely keep up.